You ever get those moments? Like life throws a curveball and you're just kind of like, whoa, what now?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's like 1 minute you're cruising along and then bam, everything changes.
Exactly. And it's in those moments, I think, where faith really gets tested. Yeah.
For sure, for sure. Makes you question, makes you think, makes you dig deep.
Well, that's kind of what we're going to do in this deep dive today. We're going to look at some stories, some ancient accounts that I think offers some really interesting perspectives on exactly that, dealing with uncertainty and how faith plays into it. We're going to be in 2 Kings chapter 8.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah, so much packed into just that one chapter. We've got the story of the Shunammite woman, remember her? And how she deals with the famine. Then we've got this intense encounter between the prophet Elisha and Hazael. And then we'll touch on the reigns of a couple of the kings of Judah. A lot of ground to cover.
Yeah, there is. But the goal here, right, isn't just to rehash these old stories. It's to see what we can learn from them, what wisdom we can pull out that's relevant to our lives today. And specifically, how these accounts can maybe strengthen what we believe as we face our own uncertainties.
Yeah.
So, the Shunammite woman, right? The chapter opens with Elisha giving her a warning.
Right. He tells her basically, hey, a 7-year famine is coming straight from the Lord, and you need to get out of here. Like, find somewhere safe, relocate.
And her reaction is so striking to me. It says she just arose and did after the saying of the man of God. Like, no hesitation, no questioning, just pure action. Yeah.
That's some serious trust right there. To just uproot your whole life based on a warning like that takes faith. I mean, imagine having to do that today. It'd be a huge decision.
Huge, yeah. And she goes and lives in Philistia for the whole 7 years.
Hmm.
But then when she comes back, it's not like everything just goes back to normal.
Nope, not at all. She has to go to the king and basically plead her case, ask for her house and land to be restored to her.
And this is where things get really interesting, I think. Because while she's talking to the king happens to be talking to Gehazi, Elisha's old servant.
Yeah, Gehazi. And the king's asking him, like, tell me about all the amazing things Elisha did. And guess what Gehazi is in the middle of telling him?
It's the story of how Elisha brought the Shunammite woman's son back to life. What timing?
What timing, yeah. I mean, talk about a coincidence. Just as Gehazi is telling this miracle story, the woman herself walks in, asking for what's rightfully hers.
Can you imagine? It's like something out of a movie. The king's hearing this incredible story, and boom, there she is.
Yeah.
Gehazi confirms it's her son. And the king, he doesn't waste any time. He immediately orders an official to make sure she gets everything back. Her house, her land, even all the produce that would have been hers during the 7 years she was gone.
It's like, wow, you can really see something bigger at work there. That's not just coincidence, you know? It's like there's a guiding hand in the details, orchestrating things. And I think that's a huge takeaway for us today. Trusting in that guidance, even when it means making big changes, can lead to unexpected provision and restoration. We see that in her story.
Yeah, it really makes you think. Have there been times in your own life where you felt that kind of prompting, that nudge to go a certain way, even if it didn't make sense at the time? Maybe it even felt like a step back. But looking back, you see how it all worked out. I think that's what we see with the Shunammite woman. It wasn't always easy, but her obedience, that initial act of trust, it set the stage for everything that followed.
Right, right. It's like recognizing that even in the hard times, even in those moments of blessing, there's a bigger picture, a bigger plan unfolding. That's what strengthens faith, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, so then the story kind of shifts gears pretty dramatically. We move to Damascus, and we see this encounter between Elisha and Hazael. King Ben-Hadad of Syria, he's sick. And he sends Hazael to Elisha with this like really extravagant gift, right? To inquire of the Lord through Elisha whether he's going to recover.
Yeah, so Hazael goes up to Elisha and says, on behalf of the king, will I recover from this illness? And Elisha's response is, well, it's kind of a two-parter. He tells Hazael to go back and tell the king, you will surely recover. But then he adds, the Lord has shown me that he will definitely die.
It's like, wait, what? How does that work? You're going to recover, but you're going to die.
I know, right? It seems kind of contradictory, but it highlights something important about prophecy. It's not always a straightforward prediction of the future. It can be more nuanced than that. Ben-Hadad, he might have recovered from that particular illness, but God knew something else was coming. And then we see this like really intense moment. It says that Elisha just stared at Hazael until Hazael became uncomfortable, and then Elisha starts to weep.
That's got to be an unsettling experience, right? To have
Yeah.
this prophet just staring at you, weeping. I mean, what did he see?
Well, that's exactly what Hazael asks. He says, "Why is my Lord weeping?" And that's when Elisha lays it out. He tells Hazael all the terrible things he's going to do to Israel. He talks about burning their fortresses, killing their young men, smashing their infants, even ripping open pregnant women. Brutal, brutal stuff.
Oh, absolutely horrific. And Hazael, he's like, what? No way. I'm just a servant, a dog. How could I ever do such thing?
Right, he's totally incredulous, but Elisha's like, nope, the Lord has shown me you're going to be king of Syria. So God reveals not only the evil Hazael will do, but also the position of power he'll be in to do it. And this is where it gets theologically interesting because, you could argue that if God already knows what's going to happen, does Hazael really have a choice? But at the same time, God's foreknowledge doesn't negate Hazael's responsibility for his actions. It's a complex issue, for sure.
It really is. And it gets at this bigger question of how we understand God's control, his sovereignty, in a world where such awful things happen. I mean, how do we reconcile that?
Yeah, that's a question people have been wrestling with for centuries, and I don't think there's an easy answer. But one way to think about it is that God's sovereignty doesn't mean he's micromanaging every single decision. It's more that his ultimate plans, his purposes, will be accomplished. And sometimes that means allowing for free will, even if it results in terrible choices.
That's a helpful perspective, I think, because it reminds us that even in the midst of all the chaos and evil in the world, there's still a bigger story unfolding. God's not caught off guard. And that can be a source of comfort, even when we don't understand the why behind certain events. Okay, so then the chapter kind of shifts focus again. We get this brief overview of the reigns of Jehoram and Ahaziah, who were kings of Judah. Jehoram, he becomes king at 32, reigns for 8 years. And the text is pretty blunt about his character. It says he walked in the way of the kings of Israel, as the house of Ahab did.
Yeah, and it even points out that this was influenced by his wife, Ahab's daughter. Talk about bad company, corrupting good morals, right? And he does some pretty messed up things. But then we get this really interesting verse. It says, "Yet the Lord was unwilling to destroy Judah for the sake of David his servant, and according to his promise to maintain a lamp for him and his descendants forever."
So even though Jehoram was a terrible king, God still honored his promise to David.
Exactly. Like his faithfulness, it's unshakable even when his people are messing up big time. And that's something we can really hold on to today, right? Knowing that God keeps his promises no matter what.
Absolutely. And that's encouraging, especially when we see what happens as a result of Jehoram's leadership. Edom revolts, sets up their own king. Libnah also revolts. And Jehoram tries to get Edom back under control, but he fails.
Yeah, things are not going well for Judah at this point. And then we have Ahaziah, Jehoram's son. He only reigns for 1 year, starts at age 22. And unfortunately, he follows in his father's footsteps, continues down that same path of wickedness. The text specifically says he walked in the way of the house of Ahab and did what was evil in the sight of the Lord. Again, we see the influence of family ties, those political alliances. They can lead you down a dangerous road if you're not careful.
It's like a pattern repeating itself.
Yeah.
And then Ahaziah, he gets involved in this war against Hazael alongside Joram, the king of Israel. Joram gets wounded, and Ahaziah goes to visit him in Jezreel while he's recovering. And that's kind of where this chapter leaves us, setting the stage for what's going to happen next.
Yeah, and I think the takeaway here is pretty clear, right? Unrighteous leadership, aligning yourself with the wrong people, it has consequences. We see that so clearly with both Jehoram and Ahaziah. They made bad choices and their nation suffered because of it. It's a stark contrast to the integrity we see in Elisha and that initial obedience of the Shunammite woman. It's like there's a choice to be made to align ourselves with good or evil. And those choices have ripple effects, not just on ourselves, but on those around us.
So much to unpack in just this one chapter, right? I mean, we've seen the importance of trusting that guidance, that divine leading, even when it seems uncertain, like with the Shunammite woman. We've grappled with this concept of God's sovereignty, how he's in control even when bad things are happening, like with the prophecy about Hazael.
And then with those kings, we're reminded of the impact of leadership, how crucial integrity is, and how those negative influences, they can really drag you down. But through it all, that thread of God's faithfulness, his unwavering commitment to his promises, that shines through, even in the darkest moments. And I think that's what gives us hope, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like these aren't just ancient stories. They're timeless truths,
Hmm.
principles that we can apply to our lives today.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. The uncertainties the Shunammite woman faced, those resonate with the challenges we face today. The power dynamics, the influence we see with Hazael and those kings, that's still so relevant in our world.
Right, right. It's human nature playing out in different ways across different times. But understanding those aspects of God's character, his guidance, his control, his faithfulness, his justice, that can really strengthen our faith today. It gives us a foundation to stand on, a framework for making tough decisions, and it reminds us that there's a bigger purpose at work, even when things feel chaotic.
Absolutely. So as we wrap this up, here's a question for you to ponder.
Hmm.
How do these stories, all these interconnected threads, the faith of the Shunammite woman, the sovereignty revealed through Hazael, the consequences of leadership in Judah, how do all these shape your understanding of God's role in the world? And more importantly, his role in your own life? Take some time to reflect on that. It's something worth thinking about.
Yeah, it really is.